Okay, sit yourself onto your left and come into a good cross leg position. So sitting on your left, so I've got the Christmas tree out of the cupboards, so everything's all over the place. Sit yourself in cross legs and have a little wriggle about. Just make sure that you're feeling evenly balanced at the seat bones. Hold onto your knees and then elevate the heart area upwards, drawing your shoulders down away from your ears. Just focus on long, slow, deep, deliberate breaths, just looking down at the floor. Look at something that's not moving. Soften the jaw and the tongue and your throat. Fill your lungs from the bottom to the top. And empty your lungs from the top to the bottom. Release your knees, bring your hands into Namaste. Press your palms firmly together, lengthen from your armpits into your elbows. And then with an exhalation, allow your eyes to close. Focus on bringing your breath in through the nose, down into the bottom of the lungs. Fill in the lungs from the bottom to the top. Empty your lungs from the top to the bottom. Just observe that feeling of energetic lightness that comes from filling the lungs and allowing the lungs to consciously inflate. In yogic terms and in scientific terms, our breath is our energy. So the pranamaya kosa is the sheath of existence, of being, where we aim to integrate the breath with the body and the mind with the breath. So inhale evenly into both lungs, evenly out of both lungs. Draw your chin down to meet your chest, lifting your chest to meet your chin. Just spend a moment to seek to generate a genuine, heartfelt sense of gratitude for something or someone or somewhere. Hold on to that feeling of abundance in the heart area as you release the backs of your hands down toward your knees, palms facing upwards. And with an exhalation, allow your head to come up and allow your eyes to open. Just hold onto your knees, lift up into the heart area, drawing your shoulders down away from your ears. Just spend a moment just to listen to the breath. Take a deep inhalation, and then with the following exhalation, draw the body around to the right side, drawing your abdomen across and your ribs and your shoulders. Use your out breath to just draw more intensity into the turn. Connecting the exertion with the exhalation. And then come back to the center. Hold onto your knees, elevate your heart area upwards, drawing your shoulders down away from your ears. Take a deep inhalation in through the nose. And then turn to the left, drawing your abdomen across. Your abdomen and your ribs and your shoulders. And then gently come back to the center. Just come off your lift and come into Adho Mukha Virasana, but just take your time. Just spend a moment just sitting back on your heels. Just feel how your body responds to sitting on your heels. If you went out for a long run on Saturday, maybe your legs really appreciate sitting back like this, because this pose of seated Virasana is really good for refreshing the energy of the legs. So push the shins into the floor, lift up into the chest, keep the seat bones down on your heels as much as you possibly can, and then press the palms into the mat, and then bring your forehead down onto the floor. Breathing in through the nose and out through the nose, listening to the breath. Just apply a little gentle pressure into the forehead just to quieten the brain. Just draw your attention into this precise moment in time. Try not to let thoughts of other things that you need to do today intrude. You can think about those later. Use this time to just be in the present moment. Because when you go to do those other things later, then you'll be able to do them with calmness and logic, because you've given yourself an opportunity to be free of it for an hour. So beginning the day with just some stretching, some breathing, just something to bring us into the present moment. Come up onto your knees, turn your toes under, and then come up into dog down. Be conscious of the nowness of the pose. So the nowness of the pose is the body's sensations, the physical response to the pose. So maybe your body doesn't feel fully engaged, or maybe it feels like there's an unevenness of action. Maybe you can immediately feel an unevenness of action between maybe one arm and the other, between the one leg and the other, between the arms and the legs. So just spend a little time just observing the action and trying to level it out, so that you're working evenly in the legs and the arms and the spine, from the left side and the right side. So there's a levelness to your practice. Try and find that evenness of action. Be in the moment. Observe what you're doing now. Don't worry about where the pose is going, just observe where the pose is. Step your feet forwards, come up into a standing position. Just have your feet as wide apart as your mat. If you've got problems with your back, then have blocks under your hands, or even come forwards, and only come forwards kind of halfway, so that you don't overdo your back. Otherwise, we're going to go into full uttanasana. So have the feet, if for either pose, have the feet as wide apart as your mat. Turning your toes inwards, stamping the big toes into the floor, stretching out into the little toes. Tightening the kneecaps, turning the fronts of the thighs consciously inwards, so that the backs of the thighs also broaden outwards. Lift from the abdomen to the diaphragm, to the collarbone. Activate the kneecaps. Raise your arms up, just stretch the chest up to the ceiling. And then hook the thumb into the crease of the opposite elbow, wrapping the fingers around the outsides of the elbows. And then coming forwards with a straight back, keeping the head lifted. Keeping the arms lifted as you come all the way down, and then allow the top of the body to hang down. Breathing in through the nose and out through the nose, just observing your resistance, observing where your body is today. Again, just observing, is there evenness of action, or does it feel very one-sided? So see if you can just even out that action. So I feel particularly lopsided this morning. One side is working much more willingly than the other. So A little time inside the pose is required. Just to level out the action. You have to read the body, you have to observe before you activate. Okay, and then release your hands down to the floor. Bring your hands into your hips, bend your knees on the way up if you need to. And then come up into Tadasana. And the inner edge of the feet together, lift up into the chest. Just observe the internal balance of action. So we're always trying to lift away from the floor, spreading the toes, hitting the kneecaps into the backs of the knees, turning the inner knees towards the back of the room a little. Just finding that evenness of action. Just to wake up the body. So observe the fluctuations of balance. They are natural. After all, the planet is not completely still. It's rotating, it's flying through space. It's only natural that the body has to deal with fluctuations of balance, but we have learned to adapt to that. Bring your arms out nice and wide in toward your chest, and then step or jump the feet wide apart. Turn your left toes in and your right leg and foot all the way out, spread in the toes. Wake the legs up with the feet, spread the toes. Turn the fronts of the legs outwards. Lift up into the chest and then reach down. Find the shin, turn the chest up to face the ceiling. Just feel the body in 3 dimensions. Feel where the feet are. Just establishing feet on the floor and the feeling of the feet on the floor in relation to the hips, in relation to that front leg hip especially. Can you squeeze that front leg hip inwards a little so that the hips are in line with the heels? Just look down as your head over your foot and then look up again. If it's not over your foot, then lift the chest. Squeeze that front leg buttock bone forwards a little more. Breathing in and out through the nose. And then come back to the centre. Keep your arms outstretched if you possibly can. Turn your right toes in and the left leg and foot all the way out. And then come over to the left. Breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Try not to collapse into that left arm. Push the left hand into the shin and lift from the heel of the hand of that left hand up into the armpit. Feel where the body is in 3 dimensions. So you're feeling the body that the eyes can't see. So again, have a quick look down, make sure that your head is over your foot, and if it's not, just correct things. And And then come back to the centre. Bring your feet parallel and then step or jump your feet back together. Just come back into Tadasana. Just spend a little time in Tadasana, just observing your energy, maybe observing the energy of the legs, of the hips, of the chest, of the arms, of the neck, of the head. Just observing how the body feels. Breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. So we can do vrksasana, the tree pose. So just stand in Tadasana. Lift up into the chest. Spread the toes of the left foot. You can lift your shorts a little bit just to give yourself kind of better grip. Then lift that left shorts up. So be in Tadasana and try and maintain your Tadasana as you lift the leg. So the big temptation here is to do this, is to bend both legs, but keep that standing leg really firmly in Tadasana as much as you can as you bring that foot up into the thigh. So if you've got something nearby just to help you to balance if you need it, then that's useful. So really reinforce that standing leg, that Tadasana leg. Turn the front of the thigh inwards. Push the foot, the skin of the, push the foot towards the back of the room slightly so that the front of the thigh consciously turns inwards. Lift up into the chest, and then if you can, raise your arms over your head. So I don't have enough ceiling height in here for that, so I just have to adjust, I just have to adapt my arms, but ideally have the palms parallel to each other, vrksasana arms. Breathing in through the nose and out through the nose, listening to the breath. Just feel how the body has to accommodate those fluctuations of balance. Just look at something that doesn't move. So mine's a slightly fisheye lens, so it's distorting the position a little. Look, makes it look like I'm sticking my hip out a little bit, but I'm not. So just keep that outer hip sucking in, keep the outer thigh sucking in. And then just gently release. And just come back into Tadasana. Just be in your Tadasana, listening to the breath. Listening to the in-breath and the out-breath, allowing the energy of the breath to reset. Just try and change this battery on this light. It's not very good. So be in Tadasana. Do it later. We'll have to cope without extra light, unfortunately. Just have the right foot, really spread the right foot. Lift up the shorts on the right side. Keep that really firm Tadasana as you bring the foot up into the thigh. Push the foot really firmly into the thigh. Push the thigh really firmly into the foot. Lift up into the chest. And then if you can, raise your arms. Or you can just keep your arms at the sides of the body, like Tadasana. Just look at something that doesn't move. Breathing in through the nose and out through the nose, listening to the breath. Just maintain your attention with the pose. Just sustain your attention with the pose. So you're observing the feeling of the pose. You're working with determination in the legs and lifting from the hips into the armpits, into the elbows, the wrists, the hands, the fingers, the fingernails. And then release, just come back into Tadasana. And then bring the feet hip width apart, raise your arms up, hook the thumbs into the crease of the elbows, and then just hang down in Uttanasana, just refreshing the action of the legs. So in Uttanasana, aim to bring the feeling of the pose evenly into both legs. Listen to the sound of the pose as it enters and as it exits. Feel that the legs are working evenly. Release your hands down to the floor, and then if you can, walk your hands with straight legs to the end of your mat. Then do, if you can't, then bend your knees, and then just come back into dog down. Have the feet hip width apart, have the hands shoulder width apart. And again, just observe your internal balance, the balance of action. So when I first did this pose this morning, everything felt out of kilter. Now everything feels like it's communicating with itself a little more. Not perfect, but much better. So we can never be wholly balanced if the body doesn't feel balanced on the inside. So observation and activation, that continual sequence of observation and activation leads to sensitivity. So that we feel the skin from the face to the feet. We feel that we can find imbalance and address it. Okay, come down onto your knees and sit back on your heels. Sit back on your heels and lift up into the chest. Elevate the heart area upwards. And then come down onto your back for baddha konasana. So just come down onto your back, supta baddha konasana, soles of the feet together, knees apart, and then just rest into the floor, but not in a floppy way. I want you to continue to press the heels consciously together, press the outside edge of the feet consciously together. Just have the footprint of the foot working towards itself. So the insteps are apart, but the ball joint of the big toe is in connection. There's the outline of the outer foot, just where the connection lies. So when you really consciously think about how the feet connect together, then any discomfort in your hips tends to lessen because you're pushing the heels consciously together. It creates compactness in the hips. But if it's aggravating your hips, then put blocks underneath your thighs just to support your hips. So we're not flopping into the floor, we're really activating the feet with consciousness. Observe that when you activate the feet with consciousness, there's real energy and action that comes into the legs. But then we can make it full-bodied rather than just leg orientated by feeling that extension in the legs and then lifting from the hips into the armpits, lifting the abdomen to the diaphragm, diaphragm to the collarbone. Just breathe even, deep inhalations and exhalations. Stretch your arms to the ceiling, interlock the fingers, turn the palms of the hands all the way out, and then extend your arms along the floor. And then just allow yourself to soften into the floor a little. Keeping the arms extending away, but just let the legs relax. So maybe if you just completely relax the legs and the hips, then the rest of the body becomes a little dull. It becomes a little soporific. Just raise your arms back up to the ceiling. Swap the interlock of the fingers so that you do the unnatural interlock. And then turn the palms all the way up. And again, reactivate your legs. Feel the footprint of the feet. Press the footprints together. So that the legs activate, so that you activate into the hips, into the armpits, and then elevate the arms along the floor. Extend them along the floor. Elevate was the wrong word, extend. Breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. Feeling the internal action of the pose. Bringing energy into the limbs. So when the pose maintains activity as opposed to passivity, then the body fills with energy. And then just to observe that difference, just allow the body to relax into the floor. And while that's initially quite an attractive feeling, perhaps it's a little short-lived because it becomes a little bit foggy after a little while. So reactivate the footprint, activate the legs, activate the hips and the torso and the arms and the hands and the fingers and the fingernails. Okay, release your arms and then just bring your hands onto your lower ribs and then just allow the body to relax into the floor. Just allow the body to completely release. So we've been in supta baddha konasana for a little while, haven't we? And and you can start to feel that in your hips a little. So just a few more moments, just let the body relax into the pose. Just let the hips relax into the pose. And then consciously draw your knees towards each other. And then bring the knees together and have the feet apart. So it's just the complete opposite of supta baddha konasana. Knees together, feet apart, just to rest out the hips. And then draw your knees in towards your chest. Just have a little rock from side to side, from top to bottom, just a gentle massage on the spine. And then roll over onto your right side. Just stay down for a breath or two. And then straighten out the top leg, come back up into a seated position. And then just come into cross legs for a moment. Have a belt where you can reach it. Have a couple of blocks where you can reach them. So just come into cross legs, into half padmasana or swastikasana, whichever. Swastikasana is just normal cross legs. Just hold onto your knee and lift up into the chest. Just feel the lightness of the energy of the chest. Elevating the heart area upwards, drawing your shoulders down. Just breathing even and deep inhalations and exhalations. Just get the blocks and bring them to the sides of the hips for sukhasana. And then reach underneath the right knee with the right hand. And then bring that right elbow down so that it's directly underneath the shoulder. Bring your left hand onto your hip. And then just feel the initial imbalance. So all of your weight goes onto the elbow and onto this right hip, but this left hip becomes really light. So push the right elbow really firmly into the block, and then lengthen from that elbow into this right hip out into that left hip, so that you really draw it down into the floor. And then turn the chest, look up, and then reach up and over, but don't forget that left hip. Keep pushing that right elbow into the floor, lengthening that left hip across from the elbow, looking up. Breathing evenly, keeping that left buttock bone pressing down consciously into the floor. And then come back to the center. Just observe the energy that you've released. Maybe there's an unevenness of energy between the right side and the left. So we'll address that with the pose on the other side. Reach underneath the left elbow, reach underneath the left knee, bring that left elbow down onto the floor. And initially just observe that the weight goes into the elbow and into that left hip and away from that right hip. So push that left elbow really firmly into the block, and then try and push away from that across into that right hip. Lift up into the chest, Turn the lower ribs across and then lift up and over, accentuating that pressing down action of that right hip, pushing the left elbow into the floor to stretch across to that right buttock bone. Breathing in through the nose and out through the nose, looking up. Breathing in and out through the nose. Really consciously pushing that right seat bone into the floor by activating that left elbow into the block. And then gently come back to the center, just holding onto your knees, lifting up into your chest. Just feel the lightness of your energy from the inside, like you're radiating energy from the inside. Just observe the evenness of that energy. Use your breath to distribute it if it feels uneven. And then turn to the right side, drawing your abdomen across. And your ribs and your shoulders. And then come back to the center. Just lift up into the chest and then turn across to the left. And then come back to the center. Just come down onto your back. And we're going to go into setubandha. So if you're not doing setubandha today, you can bring your legs up in the air for viparita karani. Otherwise, bring the feet close to the seat bones. Lift the tailbone up off the floor. Gather your shoulder blades together so that you come right onto the tops of your shoulders, and then just bring the sacrum area down onto the tailbone so that the sacrum is flat on the bolster, on the block even. Hold onto onto the sides of the mat, and then turn the crease of the elbows up to face the ceiling and out to the sides. Just breathing even deep inhalations and exhalations. If you can, if your back feels okay, then you can stretch one leg out. Just feel how that feels in your back. Bring it back, then stretch the other leg out along the floor. Just feel how that feels for your back. And if it feels okay, then slide the heels away. And keep them straight. Keep them in Tadasana. Turning the fronts of the thighs inwards. You get a tremendous stretch at the front of the hip that's really difficult to achieve otherwise. Just breathe in through the nose and out through the nose, listening to the breath. So you can stay with the legs outstretched, or if it doesn't feel right in your back, then just stay with the knees bent. So my back has been in a constant state of improvement since it last went, but I don't want to push it too far. So it feels really good to stretch the legs out. But at the same time, there are a couple of protestations within the hips that make me think that perhaps my body is not quite ready for that full stretch quite yet. So you have to observe your body's response to the pose. Just breathing in and out, listening to the breath, just enjoying this feeling of gentle inversion, just bringing quietness to the brain and energy to the body. Okay, when you're ready, just walk your feet a little closer to the block, and then maybe just come up onto the tiptoes, lift seat bones off, or the sacrum off the block, and then just adjust your shoulders on the way down. Guide yourself down gently into the floor, and then pull your knees in towards your chest. Just have a little rock from side to side, from top to bottom, just really easing out any tensions in the back. Maybe even getting hold of the outside edge of the feet and having a rock from side to side, just pulling the feet into the body, just really stretching out your back and stretching out the hips. And then release, and then roll over onto your right side, stretch out the top leg, and then just prepare yourself for your shavasana. So have a blanket evenly folded for your head, and then just guide yourself down the center of your mat, and then let the body release into the ground. Focus on long, slow, deep, deliberate inhalations and exhalations. Allow the body to completely release into the ground. Let the muscles relax. Unhook the muscles consciously of the arms and the legs. Allowing the physical body to become heavy on the ground. Just allowing the body to just completely relax into the floor. Just observing the feeling of energetic lightness that radiates from the bones and into the muscles, into your organs, into the flesh and the skin. Just wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers. Just bringing yourself back into this pose of shavasana, and then draw your knees in towards your chest. Just have a little rock from side to side, from top to bottom. And then just roll onto your right side. Just stay down for a breath or two. And then straighten out your top leg, come back up into a seated position, just final cross legs with your hands in the masti, just a final spinal lift. Just draw your breath in through your nose down into the abdomen. Be conscious of the energy that you have released through your practice this morning, that good, positive, healthy flow of clean energy that the extensions and the forward bends, the twists and the inversions bring to the body and to the mind. And then draw your chin down to meet your chest. Just spend a moment to seek to generate a genuine, heartfelt sense of gratitude for something or someone or somewhere. And then send some of that positive energy out into the world. And then gently release the backs of your hands down towards your knees. Palms facing upwards, bring the tip of the index finger with the tip of the thumb. And then as you raise your head, allow your eyes to softly open and the focus to softly come back. Thank you very much. Thank you. So hopefully you feel as though you've really woken yourself up, you've given yourself a good energy to put into your day. So thank you very much for joining me.